Okay, good morning. Welcome everyone to the special called meeting for the Board of Education. I would like to call this meeting to order, and we will begin with approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve agenda.
No, I'd like to add a couple items to the agenda. Melissa, can you mute? Yes, I would like to add a couple items to the agenda from closed session bids. Porter Ridge High School baseball field improvement bid, the Prospect Elementary School chiller bids, the Parkwood High School auditorium HVAC bids, and the Monroe High School stadium lighting bids. Yes.
I will second.
That was Porter Ridge, Prospect, Parkwood, Monroe.
Okay, are there any other changes to the agenda? I need a motion to approve the amended agenda.
Motion made.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, so that brings us to the consent agenda.
I move that we approve the amended consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, state your name. Okay, the consent passes 7-0. That brings us to the budget discussion for 2020-21 operating and capital budget.
Where's Shauna?
She's here.
Oh, there you are. Sorry. Shauna, do you want to take it? I know it's so bad.
Provided in your packets, as requested, we discussed in general session when we were talking about the budget, some of the mandatory items that will be required for us just to meet the budget needs for next year. Some of them salary increases, not salary increases, I'm sorry, benefit increases, some of the utility cost increases. I provided just a quick snapshot of what those increases based on the appropriation we were given from the county commissioners and a balance. So currently with the increases for mandatory items that we had listed in our budget, we'd be at $105,457,000. That only leaves about $588,000 that I would like to request that we designate for reopening schools. There's going to be a lot of PPE needs. There's going to be transportation needs. And while we do have some additional funding from the state, I don't believe it's going to be sufficient. They did approve on Thursday, they did approve the bill to increase the step for teachers as well as for APs. So there will be an impact to our local budget for some of those things. Due to the mini bills that they've been passing, there's going to be some things that I think are going to come up that we're just not going to have allocations for. So between the General Assembly and any mini bills that come through and reopening schools, I'd like to request that we designate that 588 for those items.
I think that's a great idea. It's disappointing that we're not able to do our other items that we wanted to get done this year. Okay, I'm going to go to a different room. So it's disappointing that we weren't able to get the other things in, but I'm glad that the state legislature took care of some things with the teachers. I appreciate everything that you've done here, Shauna. So I would make a motion to approve the amended budget.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, state your name. Okay, that passes 7-0.
Can I say one thing, just so everybody knows, that the county did not approve our bond request to go onto the onto the November ballot for the voters to decide. The interactions that we had with the county commissioners, we were left with the idea that they didn't need any more information from us. Mrs. Merrill and I reached out, Shauna reached out, Mark's email. We thought that the county had all the information. We were shocked to learn that they needed more information. The other thing is that it would have been nice even to put it to the vote on the ballot so that the voters could decide this instead of the county commissioners. We wouldn't be able to start any construction on anything now until 2024. And just so people understand, we're not allowed to put bonds on the ballots in odd years. It only can be in even years when Board of Education members are elected. So this pushes everything back. And once you put a bond on the ballot and it's approved, it doesn't necessarily mean that the tax increase has to go in at that time. It can take a year or two before bonds are placed in the market and the debt is out there. So I just wanted to let everybody know that that's what's going on. I just had hoped that they give the voters the choice to make this decision instead of them. But I feel that we gave the information, and if they needed more information, they certainly could have reached out to us. On our bond request, we had a 3% contingency, which took into case inflation and things like that. The other thing that was brought up was the funding, when we would need the funding on these bonds. And last time when we did this in 16, we had that meeting after the voters approved it, not before. So I'm left with being a little bit confused about how this happened and why no one reached out from the county to ask us questions. So I just wanted to let everybody know kind of where we are. So hopefully over the next year or so, we can have conversations again with the county about the bond, and we can do something in 2022. Thank you for allowing me to do that.
Meryl, I do have one question. Does this budget include Mr. Kiker's salary? Because we are paid as board members.
Mr. Kiker is not a salary,
But does the, okay.
Mr. Kiker is not a salary, nor does he receive benefits, but he does receive a small stipend from the county. And I would assume that would be
there's going to be someone placed into his seat.
so once that seat is filled, that stipend would go to the person that fills that seat.
But he will not be paid for the month of July.
No, I will divert Ms. Shauna that with his resignation today, that would end effective immediately.
Can somebody mute their mics because I'm getting an awful lot of feedback on the sound, please.
So I think Gary is finding another location. 4 of us were here this morning for the press conference, so we're spreading out to get computer microphones away from each other. So I think that may have helped.
Yes.
So we do have a motion and a second on the floor. Are there any other questions or comments about the fact that we're having to change our operating and capital budget as submitted to the county? I will agree with Mrs. Heintel that I was shocked to go to the county meeting and them not approve our budget. because Kathy and I had reached out to Chair Jerry Simpson and the Vice Chair Dennis Rape, and we met with them the week prior to their meeting. And I asked repeatedly if there were any questions about our budget, if there were, if I didn't have the answers, I would speak with staff to get the answers. And several times in the meeting with the chair and the vice chair, Mr. Simpson and Mr. Rape, they said that they did not have any questions. They were, I will go on record again that we have been meeting with Mark Watson and the county commissioners for over a year in discussions on our 5-year capital plan and future land purchases, school improvements, school replacements, building replacements. Our staff has been in all of those meetings. We've had lunches with the county manager and county commissioners. So I am very, very shocked and disappointed that even when Kathy and I followed up the week prior to their meeting, they did not have any questions. So I think it's very important for the public to know that we've been speaking with them for over a year on this 5-year plan. We had a joint meeting for the budget discussion, and the county was not prepared to meet virtually or in person, and they canceled the joint meeting with us, which is another reason why Mrs. Heintel and I reached out to them to see if they had any questions or comments, or if there was any more information we needed to provide for them. And they said that they could not think of any questions. So I just want to go on record that we absolutely have been in discussion with them for over a year, and wanted to make sure that they had everything they needed before their meeting the following week. And we actually met in person in our boardroom. So I'm shocked and disappointed. I'm especially disappointed that our teachers in Union County Public Schools are dropping in the state compared to other counties for their local stipend. We expressed to the county commissioners that we have gone from 11th or 12th in the state all the way down to, I believe, number 17 in the state for our local stipends. We explained that our teachers, our nurses, psychologists, and social workers have not had an increase to their stipends since 2012. We explained that we continue to have transportation challenges and not being able to, have enough bus drivers for our school district. So again, I'm extremely disappointed that they said that if there was anything we needed, to come to them and let them know what we need to continue to be one of the best school districts in this state. And they have unanimously chosen not to listen to us when we bring this information to them, that we are losing our position in the state for our employees.
I have a question. Was it a unanimous vote from the Board of
Yes.
County Commissioners?
There's no
Yes,
vote.
it was.
There was no vote on the bond at all. They just never.
Well, the budget, I'm referring
No.
to our budget request.
And it was it 4-1 or 5-0? I can't remember.
It was 5-0
Was it
on the budget.
on the
yes.
budget?
I believe so.
Well,
So,
from
Go
somebody
ahead,
that has
Christine.
gone through the lawsuit, because of lack of funding, it seems like we're back in those shoes again. That, not that we're going to sue them, please don't misunderstand me, that they again are not wanting to fund us. At the time, Jerry Simpson was at the helm, and he's at the helm again. And it just seems like we're repeating old patterns over and over and over again, and the schools aren't being funded properly. Even with the bond for Forest Hills, you know, that school needs some love and attention. And I find it very hard to believe that they care enough about the citizens in that community that they're not allowing the citizens to vote on this. This is ludicrous to me. It just shows a lack of empathy on their part, their lack of concern for our teachers, for our schools. It's just disgusting to me. I sincerely feel that we are back in 2012 and Jerry Simpson is no more funding, no more funding. You get what you get and that's it.
I agree with what you're saying. It was disappointing on the bond. They didn't even take it up for a vote. And the fact that the county manager said, well, we didn't have enough information to make a decision. I don't know why the county commissioners didn't say that. It was very disappointing because, again, like what Melissa said is completely true. We met with them the week before. I sent an email to them
In person.
Right.
So who's running the show? Is the county commissioners running the show, or are they being told what to do?
I don't know.
Because in my opinion, that's what it seems like. We're back in 2012 where Ms. Cotto was telling her boys exactly what to do. And that seems like what we've got going on again. They're
Mr.
being
Sykes,
told
I
what to
believe
do.
you had a question.
Well, I have a series of questions. We had a joint meeting in February. I don't recall, correct me if I'm wrong, any questions from county staff or the commissioners about the bond. We had a follow-up meeting scheduled in April, which the county canceled. To anyone's knowledge, did any member of the county commissioners or any county staff reach out to ask specific questions about projects on the bond in up until the last meeting of the county? To your knowledge, has anybody reached out? Oh, okay. Have any of the county commissioners reached out to ask to take a tour of East Elementary or Cuthbertson Middle or Forest Hills High that were involved in these projects? Reach out and ask to see for themselves what was involved in these projects. To your knowledge, did any of them reach out to request, or any county staff for that matter, request to go actually see the facilities? Okay. Well, I didn't think so.
I asked Dr. Houlihan that question, and I asked Mark Strickland that question, and the answer was no.
Okay.
No, not to my knowledge.
Well, and Kathy and I have repeatedly invited them and offered to take them to our facilities to see it themselves.
So apparently in February, when this was brought up in a joint meeting, up until their meeting, they all of a sudden decided they didn't have enough information or they had questions. I mean, there were also comments made about that we don't even know what the opening of school looks like, which is totally irrelevant to the bond projects, which are talking about replacing buildings that are 60 and 70 years old. That has nothing to do with that, frankly, unless you think we're never going to have school again. I think it was a diversion tactic on their part to come up with this committee. The facilities committee has been working, as you've heard from the principals, have been working over a year on this. And when we first made them aware of our intentions, there has been no feedback and no request for information. So I find it highly suspicious that at the actual meeting where we need to move to the next step to give the people a chance to decide, they all of a sudden decide they don't have enough information and they need to come up with this committee to devise a long-term plan when the facilities committee has been doing just that. I want to also add that in this coming fiscal year, in the county's own information, the debt service on UCPS existing bonds is being reduced by 12.9 million. In other words, Union County Schools is costing the county less this year when you take in operating expenses, capital expenses, and what they refer to as indirect, which is interest to pay off existing bonds. So I'd like to know where that money's going, because it's surely not coming to us. Even their projections, if this bond passed, their projections of future debt service would not hit the peak that it has in the past. So I find it very disheartening that now, if they wanted to come out and say, we can't support this bond because the future, we just can't see the future, that's one thing. But to come up with this tactic of setting up this committee at the last piece, I find this disingenuous at the least. And I am very disappointed. In my over 30 years of living in Union County and having an interest in Union County Public Schools, I have never seen a county commission deny the public the opportunity to vote yes or no on a bond. They are not giving the people a chance to decide when our goal is to provide equity for some of these older facilities in eastern part of the county that richly deserves it. And I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Mr. Sides. I will also share with the board that one of the comments the county commissioners made that was so alarming to me on why they did not support the bond is the county commissioners shared that they felt like that at the time of this vote for this request for this bond for November 2020, that they had not received the same level of detail that they had received in the 2016 bond, and that they wish that we had provided the same level of detail to them for the 2020 request that we had provided to them in 2016. And I just want to remind everyone that when we went to the county with our $54 million bond request in 2016, those 7 projects were pulled from the CCEP. And I recall very specifically that the county commissioners hated the CCEP. So to come back now and say that they were so impressed with all the information that they received in 2016 for the $54 million bond that they put on the ballot, which came from the CCEP, which they despised and were very public about their disapproval with the CCEP. I was just very shocked and surprised when they voted no on this request and wanted to know why we did not have the same level of detail. And I will just also remind everyone that this past year, the county made us spend out our reserve funding for emergencies. So we do not have a reserve for emergencies to address reopening of schools. We do not have an emergency fund, for bonds or chillers, but they were very specific when they told us we could no longer have an emergency fund, that if we ever needed anything, to just come to them and tell them what our needs are. We have not spent any money on architects or plans or anything to be able to bring to them what a 2020 bond would look like, because we don't have a fund balance to do that type of planning. I don't even know where we would get the money from to bring that level of detail to them for a bond, unless the citizens of Union County were able to vote on it in November And the county would then have to give us funds to move forward to pull those projects together with plans and details, which is what they were asking for in their vote. So again, I was extremely confused. I was disappointed because Kathy and I had met with them so many different times in person. And at no point did they say that they needed more information. And I believe that's what I heard from staff as well. So that addresses the 2020-21 operating and capital budget. Our vote was 7-0. If there are no more questions, we will move on to the Citizens Advisory Committee on Diversity.
Ms. Merrill, I have one last either comment or
Yes,
question
Mr.
before we leave
Stiles.
the budget. The proposal that the commissioners voted on was to set up this committee with the community college commissioners and Board of Education. And frankly, I don't have enough information to decide on this issue because, as you stated previously, bonds can only be we can only do them on even years. So I think it would be, frankly, a waste of time to start on such a project because, frankly, it's redundant. We have done the work through the Facilities Committee, and without a commitment of the commissioners to even do anything on an interim basis or even to consider it in 2022, why should we go through a committee to put all this information together? So I don't feel comfortable moving forward with that initiative until I have more questions answered and get a feeling that there will be a commitment on the part of parties to seriously address these needs. So I would not support any proposal or any motion from our board to be a part of this committee until additional information is obtained.
Part of my concern is they want to, for this committee to be Union County Public Schools and South Piedmont Community College, which, we have 42,000 students. We have 5,400 employees. We have different funding sources. I believe South Piedmont Community College is managed in an entirely different format. So I'm not sure what the benefit would be to have Union County Public Schools and the community college on the same committee, because it's apples and oranges. I don't know how that would benefit them or benefit us. So this is an idea that the county manager came up with, and I'm just not sure that that it would benefit the community college or Union County Public Schools. I'm a little confused on the.
I think
I agree.
I agree with what you said. I think we should get together a list of questions that we have with respect to this committee and get answers to it before we go forward.
And just so everyone knows, and speak up if you've heard from the county, but I have not heard from the commissioners since their recommendation. So I have not heard anything more on this committee being formed.
I think Dr. Houlihan has.
Okay.
No, I've not.
You have not.
On the committee, no, I've not heard anything from the committee.
If I remember correctly from the meeting, he said that he would be reaching out within the next 90 days. So that also calls into question my actual, their level of actually commitment on following through with this as a serious effort.
I believe there was something in the email that came over about the budget, Dr. Houlihan. There was a small thing about the committee and the makeup of the committee, but not a lot of, it's not answering the questions that we have.
I
So at
think-
most, just an email.
Yes, it was just an email saying
I'm-
what passed at the board, at the Board of County Commissioners.
That is correct. Yes.
Okay, sorry. Okay.
Okay, if there are no more comments, we have voted on the 2020-21 operating and capital budget. That was a 7-0 vote. That brings us to the Citizens Advisory Committee on Diversity.
Ms. Merrill, I'm sorry. Can I make one last comment really quick?
Mhm.
I just want to remind the public, the board knows this very well, but when you look ahead to our funding, just as a reminder, while the local plays a huge part in this, we're also funded at the state level. And unless something changes, we will be operating next year on the 18-19 state budget. And I just sometimes we lose sight of that. There has been no new full budget vote at the state at all, besides the mini bills that are being passed. And so that is also going to present some challenges. And while we're looking ahead to next year, I do want to also remind we're closing out the current year. And I just want to say a big thank you to the board and a thank you to the Finance Committee and a thank you to Shauna McLam and staff for the successful budget closeout. This past year was a very challenging budget year for us for many, many reasons. And I want to commend all of you and staff for a job well done and reaching a balanced budget for the end of the year as we project. And we'll have that verified with our audit in the fall. So thank you all.
Are there any more comments before we move to the next agenda item? Okay, we will now discuss the Citizens Advisory Committee on Diversity. I'll kick this off with saying over the last month, we have received emails, messages, phone calls. We have learned that there is a group of students that are having this conversation in the Marvin cluster. We found out another group of students that's having a conversation in the Weddington cluster. On Friday, a community member called me to let me know that there was a group in the Porter Ridge cluster having these conversations. So when I was speaking with Michelle Morris on Friday, going over lots of stuff that is on our plate, I mentioned to her that because I know this is a conversation we've all been having for quite some time. And so I thought that it would be a good idea, instead of different communities and different high schools and groups of students working in different silos all over the county, that perhaps our board would want to have a conversation about forming the Citizens Advisory Committee on Diversity, so that juniors and seniors can apply to serve on this committee from each cluster, and then allow community members to apply to serve on this committee from each cluster, and open it up to our faith-based partners if there are churches or faith-based partners in Union County that would also like to help facilitate and work with all of our students and employees and staff on this committee. So I'm just going to leave it at that and just say that was an idea or recommendation I wanted to put out there. And so I'm just going to turn it over to the board and we can begin our talk about the conversation, whether, if you want to do this or not.
I would support this effort anytime that we can have a dialogue versus some of the more extreme actions we've seen around our state and around our country. I think that's a good thing. And I'll be more than happy to volunteer to assist this becoming a reality any way I can. If you want a board liaison or however you want to, the pleasure of the board, I would support this.
I like this idea as well. I think that we need to find a facilitator who can facilitate the conversations in this committee. I think that would be a great idea. It's something that maybe staff can help us with. But I like the idea, Mrs. Merrill.
I like
Okay.
the idea.
I also support this idea, as long as you've already said, we include all silos, so as well as Forest Hills, Monroe, and all schools. And the application does not include a political affiliation. And I'm happy to assist, if provided the opportunity as well.
I too like the idea, Melissa. I guess the one question I would have, are you looking to do one committee or two, like an adult committee and a student committee, or are you looking to do one? I know the
That's a great
superintendent has a
question.
student
Initially-
advisory committee and then an adult committee.
That's a great question.
I think it would be a great idea for them to be together so that the students can tell everybody what they feel about it. I mean, in fact, they could break up into smaller groups to
Mhm.
stuff, but I think
I guess I would question, would your students be lax and maybe answering some of the questions if adults were in the room? Sometimes they speak better just to their peers.
But if there's a
Well,
facilitator, maybe he can talk to the group separately and bring them all together. I don't know.
Right. That's great. That's a good idea.
And on the other hand, too, we may look out to
working
the
group.
foundation and see if they can help facilitate.
I'm sorry, Todd, I missed that.
Maybe the foundation could help facilitate these meetings.
I think we need an expert
Be a
in
pro.
diversity to help I mean, that's just my opinion, and I will, defer to the rest of the board. But I think if you're referring to the Education Foundation, my personal opinion would be to find someone who specializes in diversity.
Yeah. And is a professional facilitator. Keep it on track. Would the chair entertain a motion at this point?
I would.
I would make a motion.
Gary, can I make are you gonna make a motion to send it to SPIT to work on who's gonna be a part of the committee and all that kind of stuff?
Well, I think if we get a motion in a second, we can open it up for more comments. And I think that, Kathy, if you don't mind picking it up from there.
I would like to make a motion that in the appropriate process, we form this diversity committee with makeup that's been previously suggested of students, parents, community members from the faith areas, and to be selected, or a process to be developed for selection, meeting format, etc. I will offer that motion.
I will second that, but I'd like to add that make an amendment to your motion that it goes to the SPIT committee, and they're the ones that develop the application and look at finding a facilitator and then come back to the full board.
Agree.
I would accept that as a friendly amendment.
So I second.
Okay, we have a motion in a second. Are we? I would like to open it up for any comments or questions or suggestions.
And Gary, you did, Ms. Merrill said that she believed the committee should be advised by an individual that is a professional diversity.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'll let SPIT kind of work out the details of the composition of the committee.
Facilitator. Thank you, Candace.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. You added, don't apologize, you added to my facilitator. Yes, it should be somebody who has dealt with this before and it is recommended. I think we should reach out maybe to our UNCC or Wingate or somewhere to maybe help us.
Like CPD would also be a great organization as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I'll just add that I support this 100% and would assign staff to begin working on, with consultation with the SPIT committee, working on the application for review, identifying a possible couple of facilitators that has this experience and background, and we'll bring forth those recommendations to the SPIT committee moving forward. So I think it's a great suggestion, and our staff and I support this 100%, and we'll do whatever we can to support it and move it forward.
Okay. So I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay and state your name. Hearing none, this motion passes 7-0. That brings us to the reassignment of Weddington Acres. I will ask Ms. Kathy Heintel if she wants to speak to this from facilities.
I apologize because I switched rooms. So I don't, all the stuff that I need to discuss this is in the, wait, let me find it. Here it is. Okay. Weddington Acres, back on May 5th, we approved the reassignment of a new subdivision called Weddington Acres on Forest Lawn Road across the street from Antioch. The reason we made the decision was based on Antioch being at 122% of capacity, Weddington Middle being at 104% of capacity, and Weddington High School at 91. We had 4 meetings at which we talked about a bunch of different new subdivisions, one of which was Weddington Acres. We had 2 meetings of the Facilities Committee on March 18th and April 23rd, and it went to the board for consideration on April 7th, and then was passed by the board on May 5th to reassign it to Sun Valley. When we talked as a facilities committee, we talked about brand new subdivisions that didn't have any houses sold or anything in it. We had staff look up information regarding these subdivisions. What we found out after our meeting on May 5th, that there had been lots that were sold in this subdivision, 14 of 25. So it's a 25 single family unit subdivision. 14 of them, or 54% of them, were sold already in basically from November to March. And the county system is behind on the sale of properties. It takes a while to catch up. So when it came to us that most of these people had bought their lots back in November through March, and we didn't know that at the time that we made their decision, because this is not a wholesale redistricting thing. This is trying to move some things around before people buy anything, so that we can make sure that we have ample space at our schools and make sure that our utilization is good. So we took this back to Facilities Committee on June 18th to discuss it again, and the Facilities Committee recommends to the full board to put Weddington Acres back at Antioch, Weddington Middle, and Weddington High School, because of the fact that we were unaware that 14 of 25 lots had sold prior to our decision.
And they're already ready to break ground. So they're ready to move it. And again, this is directly across the street. So
and it's only 25 single family units. So that makes a big difference with
and most of the families that we did hear from already had students at Antioch. So that was another thing we took into consideration, is that those students are already there. So this does not require
motion to basically reassign it back to Antioch, Weddington Middle, Weddington High as it was before. And it does not need a second because it came out of Facilities.
And I will say it was unanimous out of Facilities, I believe, correct? I believe so. Okay, any questions, board members? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All
Aye.
opposed, please say no and state your name. Okay, this motion passes 7-0. That brings us to the end of our agenda for today for our open session. I need a motion to go into closed session pursuant to NCGS 143-318.11A1 to prevent the disclosure of privileged personnel information under Chapter 115C, Article 21A of the North Carolina General Statutes, and for the consideration of bids.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in
Second.
favor say aye.
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 We will see you in closed session.